All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So hi again, everyone. My name is Christian, and I am part of the marketing team here at Hewitt. So thank you so much for being part of today's webinar and joining us, which is called Holiday Shopping in September, How Do You Adapt Your Website for Sales Growth? So just a couple quick sort of housekeeping notes. It will be recorded, so you can go back and review if you missed something or share with a colleague who might not have been able to attend. Questions, you should see a bar on Zoom where you can, Q&A section where you can type in some questions. So please feel free to utilize that. And we've set aside some time with our experts to go over those questions at the end. There's also going to be a couple polls to kind of try to get a sense of, who the audience is and what, keep things a bit more entertaining. So those are, will be throughout the webinar. We have 2 or 3 today. So I'll come back and join you for those, and we'll describe how that works. It's pretty self-explanatory once we get there. So with that said, let's start today's presentation by having our panelists introduce themselves. Gary, would you like to start?
Awesome. Thank you, Christian. Great to see that we're wearing the same shirt today as well. Would like to say we planned it, but we didn't. But yeah, it's great to have everyone with us today. Appreciate you taking the time here towards the end of the week. My name is Gary Symington. I'm the Customer Success Manager here in Hewitt's North American headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Born and raised here in Minnesota, so I love all those winter activities, playing hockey, sledding, skiing, all that. But when I'm in the office, I'm really here to serve as a partner and a liaison to our customers in North and South America, making sure they have everything they need with regards to our solution, keeping them posted on new developments, and really just walking with them as a teammate through anything they hope to achieve with our solution and through some of their biggest events throughout the year. And I'm very glad to be joined today by Philip Jackson, if you want to say hello.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you to the entire Hewitt team for having me. My name is Philip Jackson. I am the Chief Commerce Officer at Something Digital, and we build e-commerce websites for businesses of all sizes. By day, I spend a lot of time thinking about how I help businesses grow their direct-to-consumer e-commerce presence online and how they attract customers and how they retain those customers and build a really valuable business in e-commerce. And by night, I am a researcher, and I spend a lot of time in a lot of my free time researching retail. And we'll uncover some of that data here that I've done recently as this webinar unfolds. But it's a pleasure to be here, and glad to be sharing this time with all of you.
Great, thanks so much, Philip and Gary. So just a quick rundown of the agenda. So we have about 15 minutes each for the 3 main parts of today's presentation. So going into some of the e-commerce trends for this upcoming holiday season, some strategies that retailers are looking towards to capture sales this year, and then some takeaways to help prep your operations for the online demand that's bound to come with e-commerce, especially this year. And then again, some time set aside for Q&A, so please feel free to enter some questions in there at the end. And with that said, we'll start with today's first poll, just to kind of get a sense of who's in the audience. So what best describes your business vertical? And you should see a sort of pop-up here now on your bar, give you all a couple of seconds to answer. But we have sort of a long list there. Of course, there's many verticals in e-commerce, so there's also that other option. Give everyone about 10 seconds or so. All right. So we got a kind of a spread. Other is the most popular here. So that's not uncommon given how widely spread the different verticals are in e-commerce, but also some flowers and gifts and apparel. So that's it's really great. There's a nice mix of verticals here in attendance. I think all of these points are going to be relevant for you regardless. With that said, Gary, I'll pass the mic over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christian, and thank you all for that feedback. We'll start here kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of the presentation by setting the stage and looking at some e-commerce trends that will likely affect the 2020 holiday season. So the first idea there being the online channel will be a lot more crucial this year than it ever has been in the past. So being from Minnesota, as I mentioned in the past, of course, we had to pick a Minnesota-based company in Duluth Trading Co. But these numbers you're seeing here are consistent among retailers in a variety of verticals and geographic locations. So what really catches your eye about this is the fact that direct-to-consumer is actually up 32% from last year. You know, any other year or any other global conditions, that would be cause for celebration. We would all be popping champagne and enjoying a considerable boost to total sales as well. But even despite the 32% increase in DTC, you'll see that total sales is still down 4% on the year due to the tremendous setbacks that retailers have been seeing in brick and mortar in-person shopping, to no fault of their own, of course. So looking at this data, you know, what really comes to mind is the pressure that e-commerce professionals and direct-to-consumer teams, website function teams, you know, those types of roles are really bearing the brunt of the success of their organizations throughout this pandemic. You know, the pressure is on, and you know, it's almost like 32% growth isn't good enough, you know, and you need to continue to get better and you know, really support your entire organization, as it's really the key channel and arguably the only channel for a lot of retailers in this day and age. And now we have a couple surveys done by Rakuten Advertising, surveying 8,000 consumers from around the world to get some different perspectives. I thought this specific survey was interesting as it shows where consumers foresee themselves shopping, which channel they will be taking most advantage of, and which ones they really will try to avoid. So you can see that primarily online is one of the most popular choice, or is the most popular choice for this year, with almost 3 out of 4 people saying that that is where they will primarily be doing their shopping, comparing that to just over 50% saying they may be shopping in store. You know, that's certainly a disparity to keep in mind with where people's intentions lie with how they're going to you know, proceed with their holiday shopping this year. Of course, if all stores close, that would put you know, that much more pressure on e-commerce. As stores continue to close, the responsibility for e-commerce to make up that, you know, lost revenue continues to grow. But you know, the main point with this set of data is that, you know, the world over, consumers will be flooding online this year, more so than years past, to get their holiday shopping done. And I thought this survey was especially interesting because it really delves deep into that, you know, buying psychology, decision making. You know, for what reason are consumers going to be changing the method that you know, they're shopping compared to last year? And if you ask me to put a similar data set together last year, I don't even think health concerns would have made the list. It's not something that's typically synonymous with Black Friday holiday shopping, unless, you know, there's a specific or you know, specifically large flu outbreak or something like that to keep in mind. But obviously with the COVID-19 outbreak, the top answer was, I'm going to change my channel of shopping due to health concerns. So, you know, retailers have a responsibility to keep both their employees as well as their customers safe, happy, healthy throughout the shopping experience. So the retailers who are able to kind of heed this response of a dramatic emphasis on health concerns this year are going to be the ones that see, you know, extra success comparatively to those who may neglect that point.
There's a trend that we're seeing, right? So Gary had mentioned about this idea that folks are pushing over to online, and online's growing. I think we can all recognize that online retail has been growing over a horizon of many, many years. I started work in e-commerce just after the dot-com bust in 2001. I launched my first e-commerce website, and every year since, e-commerce is taken a larger portion of total retail sales. You'll see here that e-commerce's growth year over year is in, you know, near double-digit range, and the total retail sales growth and penetration in the U.S. is you know, slowly growing, while e-commerce is eating, you know, the bigger part of the pie. And it's not just in the U.S. It's in Europe as well. Europe sees a very similar trend with, you know, the total percentage of retail sales growing and the total percentage and dollar amount that are being spent in digital channels growing as well. And while that is growing at, what you might consider to be like a very fast pace. I mean, 10 to 15% historically is not anything to sniff at. What we've seen in the last 3 months alone is equivalent to, according to McKinsey and Bank of America data, is equivalent to 10 years worth of growth compressed into 3 months. And that 10 years of growth has had a real fallout, a real benefit and real boon to businesses that have made early investments in technology to be able to meet customers outside of the store experience. Gary made that really excellent point earlier about being in the large crowds being the top health concern of a Black Friday, Cyber Monday shopping season, and like, how am I going to avoid that? We saw as stores began to reopen here in the United States, store limits on number of customers that could shop inside at any one time, people lining up and queuing outside, which is very un-American. We don't queue. We don't know how to queue here in America. And so, the shoppers being trained to find more convenient channels and safer channels to shop in. And naturally, the businesses that had invested early on over these past 10 years in e-commerce to make that an excellent experience have realized the greatest growth. If you actually look then at some of the channels that have been most durable, I would say, sports, fitness, nutrition, and personal care all fall into things that I would call, the new essentials, the things that people turn to keep themselves occupied and sane and in their best fitness during the pandemic and during the closures here in the spring. Impacted businesses like Dick's Sporting Goods. And so if you actually look at the Dick's numbers in retail store closures through the first quarter of 2020, you'll see e-commerce sales grew 210%. And contactless curbside pickup is accounting for 40% of total online business during that period. And so as a whole, e-commerce sales penetration was approximately 39%, and that's from their SEC quarterly report ending in May 2nd. What's phenomenal about this is this idea is that it's not just e-commerce alone. It's more of a hybrid model where folks aren't waiting just for a purely digital experience where packages arrive in some number of days or weeks at your doorstep. Many customers are actually turning to contactless curbside, which means brick and mortar still has a role to play, but the role in the new normal is different than it was before. And businesses that made early tech investments to be able to meet customer demand, we're talking today with Queue-it. You think about the idea of queuing as a customer, this idea of queuing either virtually or in real life is something that is more prevalent now than ever. And so this idea of the queue happening outside of a local physical retail store, businesses that made those investments early on are the ones that stood to gain the most. I'm thinking of that graph that we just saw and a podcast I just listened to from Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway is a very prominent voice in the world of retail and the professor of marketing at NYU Stern. And he had basically made mention, if you want to listen to the podcast, I highly recommend it. It was the Morning Brew podcast and Morning Brew with Kinsey Grant. She interviewed him. He was talking about education, but he said it's that COVID is an accelerant. COVID was an accelerant to make whatever the eventuality happen faster. So if you were, bound to die a slow heat death in your retail business over a number of years or decades, and you were on a path to improminence and slow irrelevance in the world of retail, it just happened faster. COVID made it happen faster. And if you were poised to deliver in a new way, in a new paradigm, and you made early investments in e-commerce and you were gaining new customers through e-commerce, well, that happened faster too. And so we'll see new business models accelerate as well. I think that's, we will see that play out today in a greater way than ever before. And I love the title of this particular talk today, and it's that the holiday shopping trends happening in September, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is accelerated as well. And what do you do? And I think the challenge to every retailer is, what do you do when customers are desensitized for having seen the last 5 months of 25 and 30% off every single week from every retailer that they frequent? How do you stand out and how do you do that different? I think that you'll also be challenged to meet a certain sort of a scale. And so I think that the next phase of your growth in your business requires a technology investment first, but also thinking and behaving different and being aware of the trends in the marketplace.
Thank you, Philip. Always interesting to look at the actual data and graphs behind a lot of these trends that are no doubt affecting all of us at this time. But transitioning a bit now, the next idea we'll examine is the fact that it is technically challenging to scale an incredible amount in a short amount of time leading up to a sale like Black Friday. So the ultimate goal for a huge sale like that is one of a couple goals, but probably the main one is to sell as much as you can as efficiently as possible. Making sure that your users are having a smooth and fair buying journey, getting through as efficiently as possible, so you can either sell out or sell as much as you can during that promotion and ultimately boost your revenue, which is the end goal of the sale itself. But that being said, there are some things to consider, some technical challenges, one of which being the key bottlenecks that pop up on the user journey. Two main bottlenecks that we've identified are the inventory reservation stage and the checkout page. Users will spend more time on these pages because they entail a decision. So if I'm going to, Nike.com, I'm looking for the new shoes, I know how to click, men's shoes, find them pretty quickly. Whereas once I find the actual shoe that I want, then the decision making takes place of, I need to select my size, select my color. Maybe I'm deliberating if I do want to spend the money on the shoes or not. That's another decision to be made. Am I leveraging, coupon codes or BOGOs, things like that. So, that added time that we spend on that inventory reservation and the add to cart page can cause users to bunch up there. And those bunches of users are really when we start to see issues pop up. So similar to that would be the checkout page. Once I've added the shoes to cart, I then navigate to that page. I'm entering my credit card info, selecting my shipping method. Maybe I have to run my card to get my other credit card. Any number of things can delay the user at those stages. So for those reasons, it's really important to actively manage your shopper distribution throughout the user journey. And I know that shopper distribution may not be a commonly used term, so we like to make the analogy to a grocery store. Obviously, in a grocery store, you have different aisles for different products, just like on your website, you have different departments for different products. And then you have the checkout area of the supermarket, just as you do on the website, which is the last thing a shopper will do before leaving. So I don't know about others on the call. I'm a huge candy fan. Typically, when I go to a grocery store, it's straight to the candy aisle. So I'll use that as my comparison for the Black Friday doorbuster. So me and 50 other local candy enthusiasts all show up to the local supermarket. We rush to the candy aisle, and that creates, a conundrum of people reaching over each other. Maybe I wanted this candy, and now it's almost sold out. And I'm, quarreling with other shoppers. All of the chaos that you can imagine from that type of event. Your servers are experiencing that on your website and presenting it through either errors, slowdowns, oversold merchandise, things like that. And then, that angry mob, so to speak, of candy enthusiasts then all goes to the checkout page at once, or to the checkout at the supermarket at once. And, lines are long, people are yelling at the manager to open other checkout stations. Maybe one of the self-checkout kiosks has gone down. And, that pandemonium is, the same thing on your servers. Can lead to, credit card processing errors or further slowdowns, things like that. So for that reason, it's important to have an eye to those bottlenecks while actively managing that shopper distribution. Maybe you let 5 candy enthusiasts in, and once they've progressed out of the aisle, you let the next 5 in. And so you're throttling the input leading up to those bottlenecks in a way that actually ends up with users having a more smooth, fair, and efficient buying journey than if you just let them in the moment they got to the store. So, along those lines, and a topic that we'll be addressing periodically throughout the webinar is the buy online, pick up in store option that a lot of retailers have been taking advantage of during the pandemic. Although it's important to keep in mind that BOPIS does entail some technical challenges. On the one hand, you need to have additional systems to book time slots, similar as you would almost on like the Open Table app for restaurant reservations. There needs to be a place for your customers to book a time to come pick up their product. They need to select the location to pick it up from. Your system needs to be able to tie that reservation with the product or multiple products that they have purchased. So there are some technical factors that go into making sure that you can run buy online, pick up in store effectively. Another is that you effectively have to change your brick and mortar stores into hybrid store fulfillment centers. So, whether that's training current employees or adding new employees to facilitate the processes involved with collecting the merchandise, packaging it, and getting it ready to, go to the curbside pickup. Those are some steps you need to take, some upstart involved. And also from the technical side, session durations are increasing, website capacity decreases because it's essentially another bottleneck that is being created because there is a decision being made yet again on when and where to pick up the items that they've purchased. So we'll share some more details momentarily about the upsides of buy online, pick up in store, but certainly important to be cognizant of the challenges that do come along with it. And then a great quote that I thought really kind of encapsulated the challenges of Black Friday actually came from a discussion that one of my colleagues had with a top 25 retailer here in the US. They said we do a lot of engineering work just for that first couple of minutes where we get that extreme load. It's kind of crazy how much we invest into just making sure we can handle that. And when you think about that, your status quo sales and operating the website throughout the year, the strategies involved in supporting your website through the typical ebbs and flows of traffic that come up, taking that in comparison to Black Friday, it's really a different animal, and you need to adjust your strategy accordingly to manage the dramatic and intense spikes that come on right when you begin a sale versus what you would see on a typical weekday in April or something like that. And now we will get into some concrete strategies, kind of taking those trends a bit further and looking at strategies you can use for this upcoming Black Friday holiday season. But first, we'll hand it back to Christian for a quick poll.
Yep, thanks, Gary. And yeah, so this one here is going to be out momentarily here. So sort of how is planning for this holiday season different than how you've planned in years past? There's some different options here. We'll give you all about 20 seconds or so to think it over and put in a response. All right, let's give everyone about 5 more seconds. Cool. So it seems like it's sort of a tie between other, and would definitely be curious to hear if you want to either write in the chat or kind of reference it in a question if we don't end up sort of going over it here in the presentation, sort of how you're planning differently. But then we also have some folks centered around the starting sales earlier, which we'll go into in a second. So with that, I'll pass it over to Phil.
Yeah, that's so that dovetails very nicely into probably what is likely to be the most natural phenomenon that will emerge from any concern you might have about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is we don't know really where we're going to be globally. Are we deep into a recession still? Is there an economic issue then? Have jobless benefits expired? Where are we at with regard to, at least in the US, we have a very distracting election season. Hey, one way to avoid all of that is to start the sales earlier. Let's pull all of that into Q3. I had written a piece for Retail Touchpoints back in June that said the way to win Black Friday, Cyber Monday and to be successful in 2020 is to start that in the summer. And lo and behold, if you see this email, I mean, someone from Hewitt got exactly that. Fragrance companies have caught on. I think they're early adopters here. Gifting season will start in early Q3. already. And because we can't count on consumers having any income or disposable income later in the year, and also because people will not be together in the way that they have been in years past. People likely will not fly home for holidays, Thanksgiving, gift exchange, and your holiday work parties. And those things may look different this year than they will have in any other year in the years past. And the things that are conspicuous consumption or consumption on a level, but not necessarily like the large scale purchases, those have an impact. And so those small discrete purchases will have an impact on retailers in some form. Are those e-commerce purchases? Are they just not taking place at all? Are you going to give grandma a gift if you don't see her, or would you rather just be on FaceTime with her? These are all things that I think can all be mitigated if you start thinking about pushing that traffic to your customer earlier. So executing earlier is certainly a really important strategy, but it also pulls the peak architectural challenge that Gary mentioned earlier and spreads it out over a longer period of time. So rather than putting all of your eggs in, one basket in a couple days in November or early December, it stretches out the demand and actually gets customers earlier in your funnel. One other strategy to think about by starting earlier is that you're going to pay less to acquire the attention of a consumer now than you will in late Q4. And so if you wait until Q4, the same customer to acquire then when everyone else is competitively bidding on every other ad platform, your paid search customer acquisition costs will be higher naturally due to demand at that time. And so if you do it now, you can get them into organic channels such as email subscription, where you can try to reacquire them later in the year for relatively lower cost, maybe closer to free. If you have their attention, maybe it's time for them to buy and re-up again by the time the end of the year comes. So start executing that playbook earlier, I think, is a really solid tactical approach to the strategic benefit of avoiding problems that you might have in late Q4. And over to you, Gary.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Philip. And kind of building on that point, honestly, would be to use some time limited and even limited availability sales to drive hype. Especially if you're an exclusive seller. I'm sure you've seen some releases by retail brands like Supreme or Nike with their very customized limited edition shoes. As Philip was talking about, the goal of acquiring customers and making sure that customers are choosing your brand over the next person is that limited availability factor. If I can go to XYZ retailer and get this thing anytime, but I only have 30 minutes or 100 available pairs or whatever from your brand, then consumers are going to be more likely to go where the supply is limited or the time is limited in order to prevent themselves from missing out. You'll see, look to drive hype with FOMO and exclusivity, really making the user feel that if they don't capitalize on your sale now, they may not have the opportunity to do so down the road. So we've seen that as a very successful method for getting people excited and getting people to show up for your sales. Although as you generate all that hype, and especially if your products have a high resale value, people think they can profit by buying up your inventory and selling it themselves once the availability is not accessible through you. People will try to take advantage of that, and they'll do so by sending malignant bots to your website during your sale. So if you are going to pursue this and you really are going to market and put things out on social media and get people excited, then expect the bots to show up on the back end of that and be ready to mitigate them. I remember, on the topic of, holiday shopping and hyped up releases, I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to the PlayStation 5 release this year. I remember when, several years ago when the PlayStation 3 came out, my friends and I went and we set up camp out front of the local Target, a big, retail store here in the US. We, were eagerly waiting for the chance to get in and hopefully get what limited supply they had at the Target. People are showing up around us and everyone's talking and the excitement is palpable, really. People, I hope to get one so I can play with my friends. I want to get one for my nephew for Christmas, or, really hope I can get in there. Like everyone's, getting very excited, and the hype really builds from that physical experience you have, which I think is really encapsulated by this next quote by Nate Schneck. I think he really hits the nail on the head here with regards to how that excitement will manifest itself here in this new normal and 2020 holiday season. He says the irony is the biggest winners of Black Friday this year are likely to be the stores without a crowd. And the trick is going to be replicating the excitement, traffic, and the spend without the actual traffic and crowds. So that's certainly a challenge that all retailers are going to have to think long and hard about, come up with some creative solutions, hopefully employ some of these strategies we're discussing today. And those who are able to generate that hype and the excitement and that palpable feeling that really drives up spend during Black Friday, those who are able to replicate that will really enjoy a lot more success than those who aren't this year. And then taking a closer look as the next strategy at buy online, pick up in store, which we've touched on a couple times thus far. There's pros and cons to the BOPIS model, of course, as there is with a number of models. I think that the scales are tipping consistently more in the pro column than they are in the con column as we march forward through the pandemic. The first, big pro would be the health aspect, which we touched on briefly. Keeping your employees safe as well as your customers, feeling safe, engaging with your business. It really helps to, on both sides to make sure that people are staying happy, healthy, and confident when they're engaging with your business. And then, on the cost saving side as well, we have a great quote here from Paula Price, the CFO of Macy's, who said, "These orders are more profitable because it eliminates the cost of shipping the order to a shopper's house. Although digital sales contribute to profitability, Paula Price cites digital delivery expenses as one of its biggest headwinds, which makes buy online, pick up in store all the more important for the retailer. Plus, buy online, pick up in store shoppers typically buy about 25% more inventory. So you're getting more sales done. You're saving on that, cost, as Paula called it, the headwinds of the delivery system of online orders, and you're able to pass those savings along to the customer as well. Customers want to save on shipping. If you're saving all that money on shipping as well, then they obviously don't need to pay if they're picking it up at their local brick and mortar store. Obviously Macy's, as I just mentioned, Dick's Sporting Goods, as Philip had mentioned earlier in the call, in the webinar, they've made up 40% of their online sales using buy online, pick up in store. So it's tried and true with some of the biggest retailers in the country. Certainly involves some of those upstart procedures that we touched on as well. Making sure that from a logistical standpoint, you're ready to fulfill these orders in store. You have a way for your customers to make those reservations and link them to their specific order. You're able to facilitate those reservations on the website from a technical perspective in the first place. So there's certainly a number of things to consider if you haven't already. But overall, it seems that retailers are enjoying a lot of success and staying safe, honestly, by leveraging the buy online, pick up in store and curbside pickup.
Great, thanks Gary for that. And this is the last poll of the presentation. If I remember that correctly, yes it is. So this one be coming out to you here in a second, and you'll see why we're asking, because it ties in a bit to something that Philip's going to talk about momentarily. But we're curious about sort of the top channel you're thinking about leveraging for this year's online sales. I'll give everyone about 10-15 seconds or so. About 5 more seconds here. I think it was also interesting the point that Philip made about that paying less now, so that some of these channels are using some of these channels now, so that you can use something like email marketing or SMS later on. That was quite interesting. But yeah, it looks like as anticipated, there's quite a spread here. We have some other social media, some paid search and email marketing, and of course, as Philip mentioned as well, some of these will take place at different levels of the funnel and awareness for the customers. But Philip, why don't you get into the next point? You're going to talk a little bit about influencer marketing in this next point as well.
Yeah, and just to kind of, I think there's a really natural bridge between the results of the poll and into this particular strategy. I think when you're looking at email marketing, those are folks who have already opted into receiving something from you, so they're already aware of you in some way. When it's social media, unless you're like actively going after and like showing up and sliding into the DMs of people who've never heard of your brand before, they're also paying attention to you. So I think that those two really lean very heavily into an owned audience, an audience that already is aware of your brand. And that means that what I'm hearing here is that retailers really want to leverage retention. And so I think retention without having to spend to reacquire does fit, Christian, into what I was talking about before. What are other ways outside of spending to acquire a customer for you to partner strategically to broaden your customer base and acquire new audience? And I think this might sound like aspirational for a number of brands, but if you look out 2 to 3 years, I think all brands will be here. Your customer has a number of items that are sitting on their shelf in their bathroom, that are in their cupboard. They are sitting on the ledge of their bathtub or in the shower. They already shop other brands, and those brands are likely, if you're an apparel brand, they have very strong ties into other areas of the lifestyle that customer lives. So one thing that we're seeing is this idea of marrying two very congruent brands together to create strategic partnerships and to allow for more opportunity for collaborations and influencer awareness campaigns. So one great example of this is Todd Snyder, as a men's apparel brand based out of New York, who has recently begun selling everything from moisturizer and skincare and sunblock to partnerships for things that are outside of the apparel space, like luggage and bags, furniture, even. And so when you're looking at high frequency purchase consumable products that fit the luxury lifestyle apparel brand like a Todd Snyder, the opportunities for partnership kind of become obvious. So they'll be partnering with other boutiques, small, high spend, high average order value consumable products in the skincare space, and that same customer is likely to buy from them anyway. So when you're building out an offering, I think if you because I operate a retail research business called Future Commerce. If the future of commerce is, I believe in 3 to 5 years, every website is its own marketplace. Every retail brand is its own marketplace. Direct-to-consumer sites will be selling more than just what's native in their catalog. They'll be partnering and selling either through dropship or through owned inventory products that they didn't make, but they are collaboratively selling and fitting. And I think that the fit is the important part. When it fits, you'll find natural brand ambassadors. And I think investing in others to build the social proof that these products, goods, and the collection of goods that you've created in the experience that you've created does lend itself to an influencer campaign. And that is a really strategic way of gaining a new audience and influence. 10 years ago, or maybe not so long ago, 7 or 8 years ago, folks were declaring affiliate marketing dead. I think affiliate marketing is alive and well now because everybody is an influencer on some level, and everybody has influence in a small social circle on some level. We owe a lot of success to brands like Rothy's on the affiliate model of sharing with your friends. And I'm thinking about brands that are doing this really well today. We had a report earlier this year called 9 by 9, which rated 9 brands in 9 categories of brands that are redefining what it means to be a brand. And one of those brands is Parade Underwear, and Parade is building the hype engine by making its own customers their greatest ambassadors by giving them a discount for them sharing the product with a friend. And so traditional influencer marketing is changing. It doesn't have to be specifically with the Kylie Jenners of the world. Every customer of yours is a potential influencer, and having more products that are more applicable to more people is a great way for you to broaden the net for them to evangelize your brand. So you have to be really adept at running a digital business to make all of this work. It's useless to have strategies and goals to meet if you don't understand how to actually like employ the tactics. So let's talk about a couple ways that you can do this. The first way is your actual customer experience and your operations in the way that you deal with customer exceptions has to be a differentiator in your business. Almost 80% of consumers believe that it is important to be able to contact customer service in multiple ways. And today's consumer is reaching out to your CX team at every point in the customer journey. Customer service or customer support is no longer just issue resolution post-purchase. It's also in the, hey, does this product work for X? Or, hey, I have this product, or I'm on this medication, can I take this supplement? And those are all pre-purchase decision-making tools that create CX opportunities that can, potentially affect the sales of your customer, or the sale of your business. Your business volume and sales. And so it's incredibly important that you invest in CX. And issue resolution is super important too, because 1 in 4 customers avoid contacting customer service because it's too much of a hassle. And if you don't provide many ways of getting in touch with your CX team, you'll actually, not realize that there is a hole in the bottom of your bucket in your retention business. One of the creative ways of doing that is actually to provoke the CX outreach to the customer. Ask for a post-purchase survey. Ask them, was everything okay? Send them a post-purchase email of how to use the product. Send a PIP or like a promo and package that says, was everything not perfect? Tell us about it. We want it to be absolutely perfect. But being proactive and actually opening the door to the customer and telling them all the ways that they can reach out to you, and you opening the door first, will actually build a retention business. And that builds the brand to consumer bond. The thing that you're trying to build is lifetime value with a customer. Nobody really wants a 2 to 3 year retail business. We all want to build generational e-commerce businesses here. And the idea is, hey, this holiday season that's all built on gift giving, right? That's the original idea of the holiday gift giving season. You don't just acquire 1 customer in holiday gift giving season, you have the potential to acquire 3 customers. Because the customer that's giving the gift could be a potential customer for themselves. That's 2 customers right there. And the customer receiving the gift could be a gift giver in the future. And so the idea here is to wow at every point in the purchase journey and even pre-purchase. And I think that's what evolving your business from customer support to customer experience is all about. I have some data on this. We don't need to harp on it too much. But when you look at where your website is, the next slide's fine. Customers now are shifting their spending by category to be focused on these verticals. Future Commerce put out a report just last month called Retail Rebirth. We asked business operators where they're shifting spending in their digital business, and wouldn't you know it, the top 4 places where they are spending more or the same are all in digital channels: website, technology, in content, and customer experience. Those are where that's where businesses just like yours are putting their spending, because that's where customers are going first. And if you look at where 50% of engagements are happening right now, 1 in 2 customers are saying they're reaching for digital in some point in the journey to shop. That means that your new flagship store is e-commerce. That's it. So every experience has to be awesome and memorable. This next piece, I think it goes without saying. Christian, I just remind me, I'm still on this one, correct? Apologies.
Yep.
Yeah, it says me. I just wanted to make sure because I don't want to overstep here.
Sure
I think you can certainly, listen, it all comes down to technology, and we are in a cloud-centric, SaaS-filled world now. 10 years ago, when I was building e-commerce, we were all building and owning that infrastructure, and a digitally native vertical business meant that you owned your infrastructure as well, and you owned the code that went on that infrastructure, and it was all up to you. Today, the points of failure are very many, and you don't own all of those points of failure. And so part of the scale of holiday season is knowing where those pitfalls are and where they exist and where to mitigate your risk. Doing that upfront now and testing for those things and load right now will save you a wealth of headaches later on. So scaling up servers is one great first step. If you have infrastructure that you rely on, I'm not just talking about e-commerce infrastructure, I'm talking about all of the infrastructure, order fulfillment, warehouse, ERP data, are knowing where your points of failure are that are in your owned infrastructure will help you to be ready to make more critical marketing and business operations decisions. I'm reminded of a critical failure recently. Just a couple years ago with a business I was advising, and their issue was that their warehouse was incapable of handling more than 1,000 orders a day, not just from a workforce perspective, but technologically they couldn't queue more than 1,000 orders. Well, if they had known that prior to Black Friday, they probably would have spread out their holiday season further into the month to kind of mitigate that risk. Knowing that now and scaling up that capacity now, or understanding where your bottlenecks are now, even in payment gateways, even in financing, even in third-party apps that are installed in your infrastructure, they will allow you to make better decisions to mitigate those risks. Prime Day, it's not just any one, these aren't just small business problems either. 2018 Prime Day had a very public failure. And so if Amazon can fail with all of its infrastructure and excellence in delivering e-commerce, then certainly businesses of all sizes have the same sort of challenges. So make sure to test and to scale up where necessary.
Thank you, Philip. And kind of going hand in hand with the recommendation to scale up your servers would also be to take a look at your CDN and make sure that it's optimized to function at its largest potential, and in a way that's going to lead to the most success and the most fluid buying journey for your customers. So caching with CDN is a highly effective way to improve scalability and performance. If you're scaling up your service to begin with, running auto scaling, something like that, you want to make sure that your CDN is optimized to keep up with that. Our friends over at Cloudflare actually have a very extensive pamphlet on checklists and recommendations to make sure that your CDN is optimized and prepared going into a huge holiday sale. Along those lines, some high-level recommendations that you could find would be to make sure you're caching your dynamic content, load balancing your traffic, protecting against DDoS attacks, executing code. You want to make sure that all the components of your website are ready to go, just as an athlete would make sure that their equipment is fitting correctly, shined, and ready to go for the big game. You want to make sure that your CDN and the key components of your website are really ready to go and ready to function at their highest potential. And then another idea there would be to swap out performance-intensive features. Generally just keep it simple, keep it to things that are really imperative to the website to function, as opposed to some of the bells and whistles that might be nice during a less intense sale, so to speak, but really could ultimately get in the way and serve as a detriment to website function during the craziness that is the holiday shopping rush. So it's better to have a responsive, basic website than an unresponsive, feature-rich one. As I said, you don't need all the bells and whistles if they are just going to bog you down. So that's when you want to start looking at, nice to have versus need to have features, and turning off some of the nice to have to make sure that the need to have the bandwidth and the tools necessary to do their jobs and facilitate a successful sale. So a couple, nice to have features that we see some of our customers making a choice to go without during big sales would be advanced search, recommended for you panels, things like these that can kind of, boost the experience, but not in a functionality related way. Another suggestion at the bottom there being to use lazy loading to load media on demand. Interesting tidbit from Google on that note was that visitors perceive sites that do lazy loading to be faster, even if the actual load times are comparatively slow. So might be surprising to some of you, but always good to hear input from a source like Google recommending more simplicity in light of the intense volumes that come about during the holiday sales. And then, of course, here at Kiewit, we would recommend that you consider a virtual waiting room. This allows you to control that visitor inflow, kind of like the analogy I made to the grocery store. You're able to only let 5 candy enthusiasts in at a time instead of 50 all at once. We allow you to actually toggle that speed of users per minute that are coming from our infrastructure on AWS back into your website at a rate that your servers can handle. You see your servers are healthy, turn that speed up a little bit, get more people through, servers start getting a little overworked, you turn that speed down, let them recover accordingly. So having that granular control over the inflow is a really great supplement to these other strategies that we've mentioned from the technical side. It's really great, the flexibility of the virtual waiting room as well, being able to place it at different areas of the website, whether you surround the checkout or a specific product page if you're doing a unique doorbuster. Maybe you want to queue the entire site. We give you the power to, queue specific areas and make sure that the shoppers going to those high volume areas are being queued, and those who are not hindered by the queue at all. Without getting too technical, we have a system of what's called actions and triggers, where you can essentially set if then and or statements that allow you to really customize who is getting queued, when, and for what reason. Another great way to use a virtual waiting room is as a safety net. We like to refer to this as a 24/7 set it and forget it queue, kind of an insurance policy, so to speak. Wherever you place that on the website, it will automatically identify when the traffic on that page has exceeded a threshold that you have set, a threshold where your servers can definitely handle the traffic without fail. Set the threshold there. Once it's exceeded, the system recognizes that and automatically starts queuing without you having to intervene or put out fires, things like that. So that's a nice kind of back burner queue to have. We see a lot of value there with marketing and website technology teams. Sometimes there'll be a breakdown in communication. Marketing has done a promotion and not necessarily coordinated with the tech team to prepare the website accordingly, or maybe forecasting was not accurate. Any number of reasons. Having that safety net in place ensures that those surprises that can pop up won't be a major hindrance on your website. So these points all kind of round out to the fact that having a virtual waiting room in tandem with an optimized CDN, scaled up servers, and a streamlined approach to nice to have versus need to have additional features really allows you to sell out as quickly and efficiently as possible, get through your sale, and boost revenue to the highest degree that your servers can handle, because you have the virtual waiting room there as a supplement to make sure that it's always healthy and functioning at its highest potential. So by offloading users, regulating their flow, and facilitating an even shopper distribution, the virtual waiting room can do wonders for a huge sale like Black Friday.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Philip and Gary. That was really awesome. And we think we'll get into the Q&A session. I can see we have a couple questions. So Gary and Philip, you guys can sort of just sort it out which type of questions you'd like to take.
Yeah, I grabbed one out of the Q&A. I thought this was really, really great. Will D2C Friday be the new retail trend we will see this holiday season, or upcoming ones for independent brands? So I think Shop Small Saturday is actually that. There's this idea popularized by American Express and sort of caught on is the shopping season having specific days to spend or target your efforts to supporting people or causes that you believe in. And shopping at small business is a way of you supporting a local economy and local people who actually work and own businesses in neighborhoods that are right near yours. So Shop Small is a wonderful campaign, and I think that it has a natural overlap. If you're looking for small businesses to support in the e-commerce vertical, they are typically the sort of direct-to-consumer segment. Now, whether the consumer has an awareness of what a direct-to-consumer brand is versus what a not direct-to-consumer brand remains to be seen. I don't think a typical consumer understands what D2C is, And so having a day that's specifically focused on that, I think would be tough to get into, into the actual like consumer mind and have that sort of mindset. But I do see more prevalence going towards supporting businesses that are owned by, independents. We saw it even during some of the social unrest and the Black Lives Matter movement here in the United States and shopping at Black-owned brands. We've seen it in the past in shopping in female founder brands. So I do think that there is an appetite for a particular type of consumer to seek out and support small businesses and specifically businesses that align with their beliefs or their ideologies. So I do think that D2C stands to benefit from those. And so in that way, yeah, I do believe that a retail trend is for customers to try to shop at independents and to support smaller businesses. And those tend to be direct to consumer.
Awesome.
Gary, is there a question that you found particularly interesting?
Absolutely, yeah. I was looking at the question that says, what have consumers' reactions been to being put in an online queue? So as Philip mentioned earlier in the call, queuing is kind of a new idea. As of the last, decade, we've really been, gaining traction as a concept. And, by now, most consumers who regularly shop online, we have a very strong presence in ticketing as well. So whether it's online retail, you're going to concerts, things like that. Most people who frequently online shop have seen the queue multiple times at this point. So the only time that we really see maybe some potential confusion is the combination of a consumer who has never been in a queue and the customer not taking advantage of our queue page customization to the degree that the consumer is well informed about what's going on. That's one of the key attributes of Queue-it. We are very focused on fairness and customer experience. And so we highly encourage our customers to have, a branded queue page with fun widgets and interactive features, things like that. But a very important part of the queue page is to clearly communicate to your customers who are waiting, both, wait time metrics, real-time updates through dynamic communication, and then overall, what is this link where it says, I've clicked on add to cart and now I'm being redirected somewhere, provide me the information that I need and, communicate the fact that you're in a queue in order to ultimately have a smoother buying experience. This is here to make sure that you have a fair chance at getting a product as opposed to, bots introducing unfairness or, people being randomly taken out of their buying journey to put into a queue as some other queuing solutions that aren't Queue-it do. There's a number of communication aspects there to reduce the confusion, but far and away, most people are pretty familiar with it at this point, and the reaction is generally positive, given that there's so many, factors in place that actually boost their experience and expedite their shopping in the long run.
Yeah, I think that one last piece of advice I would throw out there, which is, any retailer, is that, this holiday is going to look different than any other holiday. And the things that work for you will be different to what works for others. The thing that you will gain the most out of this is having your business, take a, apply the scientific method and really just form hypotheses and test them. And the sooner that you get to doing that now, the sooner you'll connect with a customer and you'll figure out what's working for you and your business. And that's what we're seeing here is that the brands that are going to be most resilient and the ones who aren't waiting until the end of the year to get experimental. They're doing it right now. And so, yeah, this too will pass. It's how soon are you going to get to work? And I would really start to, just tell retailers the thing that being agile and being nimble right now is your most valuable asset. One marketing campaign will not make or break your business, but your ability to learn from what's working and adapt that and fold it into your business will change you forever.
Awesome. Well, I think that that concludes the webinar for today. Hope you learned some things and have some ideas for marching forward into this highly unique holiday shopping period that we have on the horizon here. It's been great having you as your hosts here. Feel free to reach out to myself, Gary Symington, Customer Success Manager. My email is listed there. I'm always happy to have a discussion, put you in front of the right technical contacts if that's the nature of your question, and just get to know you and discuss a bit about queuing in light of the dramatic changes that we have here this holiday season.